Good afternoon and welcome to this special edition of the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 17 years of profiling IT mission programs in the federal government. This is our second annual Profiles in Excellence Chief Information Security Officer program, which will be coming to you from the virtual studios of WTOP and the Federal News Network. I'm Luke McCormack, and during today's show, we will discuss cybersecurity trends and strategies at numerous government agencies and hear from key leaders making them happen. With me on today's show are Shane Barney, Chief Information Security Officer, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services at DHS, Mike Witt, Chief Information Security Officer at NASA, Janelle DeVore, Chief Information Security Officer, Department of Agriculture, Jim Richburg, Public Sector Field Ciso and Vice President of Information Security at Fortinet, Zafar Balalolu, Federal Cybersecurity Engineering Leader, Databricks. All right, we are talking cybersecurity end to end. Shane, we haven't had you on the show for a little while, but I know you've been doing a ton of things out there. You all are on fire. Give us a state of the state about what's happening across the cybersecurity spectrum at Citizen and Immigration Service.
Good afternoon, Luke. It's great to be here. Like you said, we are very, very busy. For USCIS, we're always driving tip of the spear technologies, and so that forces the security program to be just like him. And so we're always shooting for what's next and what's coming down the pike. And so actually, we just finished revising our overall cybersecurity strategy. And so we really are starting to focusing in on these key, some key points that we feel are sort of part of that next generation cybersecurity effort. Goal one is going to be wrapped around, obviously, the zero trust principles and implementation and enhancing our overall posture. We've actually technically always had it. We used to call it cyber hygiene. Now we call it zero trust, but zero trust is fine. It's not the best term, but it works. Well, obviously, USCIS invested heavily into intelligence and threat hunting. That's something we're looking to expand. But we also want, at the same time, we want to be able to expand our response capabilities so that not only can we find the threats, we can respond quicker and faster, as well as build in better resilience. Resilience is one of those things that some of the lessons learned we've come out of recent incidents is that we've really got to focus and enhance our abilities there. Obviously, automation for USCIS is critical. We're an agency that's 90% cloud-based. The volume of data and the amount of information flowing and threat information hitting my SOC is just out of this world. So automation is the only way for us to really drive and really focus our efforts in the appropriate ways. And it goes beyond just what's in the SOC. We're automating risk, we're automating governance, we're automating as much of our program as we can possibly get away with, so that we can really get focused in on the threat hunting aspect of our mission. We also, obviously, training and workforce are a critical goal for us, and will remain so. Staying abreast of the latest technologies and the latest threats is an ongoing effort, and making sure that we're investing accordingly. We've invested heavily for the last few years, even during the pandemic when things were tight for USCIS, and we're going to remain doing so going forward. And finally, we're really looking governance for us and creating better standardizations. Zero trust requires a sort of, what we know to be the norm. And understanding the norm in an enterprise as complex as USCIS is very, very challenging. So really building in sound governance and oversight at all levels, and then leveraging both the automation aspects and some of our development efforts to help drive that approach. So those are our big sort of goals for this next year or 2 years, next 2.5 years.
A lot of activity going on, and no doubt a good architecture and standardization super important when you're pumping out that much velocity. No question about that. Mike, it sure has been exciting to watch NASA for all of us, and I'm sure for you, but must be a real challenge to secure that environment. Tell us what's happening. Give us an overall sort of, I wouldn't say global picture, but I guess I have to say solar system or beyond.
No, it's funny. I heard what Shane was talking about that, and it's a lot of what he's talked about. It mirrors my world as well from that standpoint. He mentioned zero trust. That's something as well as what we started doing a few years ago at NASA. It's not anything new. We've been doing it for a number of years. enterprise logging. We've got that or whatever, but we're expanding that out so that we have greater visibility across of what's actually happening, within our infrastructure, both on-prem as well as our cloud infrastructure around that. We also recently went through a large look at the endpoint detection and response for threat hunting, as Shane kind of had touched on as well from that standpoint. So we're in the process of implementing a new threat hunting capability across our entire enterprise around that. We're also digging into Secure Access Service Edge, what a lot of folks refer to as SASE, so that we can, look at, moving away from, I'll call it the traditional VPN accesses and stuff like that, and move more into taking advantage of a lot more of the new technologies and stuff out there. And then, again, as Shane kind of mentioned, just the overwhelming volume of alerts and everything that's feeding into our security operations center as well and stuff like that. We're actually partnering with another part of NASA to start using automated bots, if you will, within our cybersecurity operations to start taking away some of our, I'll say our common playbook response stuff around that and stuff. So that's some stuff that we're really kind of leading into there around that. Again, things are just really moving at such a quick pace to not only just keep up with the amount of technology that's out there, but at NASA, you talk about leading forward and stuff as far as research and everything that we're doing to for the Artemis program to go back to the moon and Mars and beyond around that and stuff. So it's really trying to stay ahead and working with our partners. And we got to do that balance of making sure that we manage risk. That's one thing that we really concentrate over here. It's not so much that we have to, I'll call it, lock everything down. You can't really do that these days. You got to manage risk. And at NASA, we take risks, right? I mean, that's what we do over here. So it's really working closely with our partners to ensure that they can perform the research and the missions that they need to do, but we do it in a secure manner in managing risk.
Really calculated risk and sort of, you're all about enabling the mission and doing that in a calculated way. Janelle, I'm always amazed at how huge the Department of Agriculture is. How many employees there? That footprint is always just daunting to me.
Yes. Thank you, Luke. Yes. So we have over 100,000 employees here at USDA. Very diverse missions within USDA, which makes working in cybersecurity here lots of fun. So here at USDA, just like the Shane and Mike mentioned, we're laser focused on implementing our cybersecurity modernization strategies that are laid out for us in Executive Order 14028. We've been successful in implementing items like enterprise critical software, enterprise logging, and a majority of our time has been spent on zero trust architecture because it's really turning everything that we've been doing on its head, and we're having to look at things a lot differently. So we spent a lot of time breaking out and distilling down the requirements for zero trust. And we've found there are about 110 or so discrete requirements in the implementation of that requirement, like expanding multi-factor authentication here, encrypting, segmentation of the network, to name several others. Also, OMB has very specific requirements that are added on top of that. I think this is great. I think this is, the implementation of the order has helped us tremendously because it's helped our agency really focus on, on cybersecurity. I mean, everybody has their business functions that they need to do. Now, cybersecurity is a priority here at the department. The secretary, the deputy secretary, all of their talking points, cybersecurity, they're stressing how important it is for the department. We're also focusing on continuous operational improvements in our Security Operations Center. So earlier this fiscal year, we started a project called SOC Maturation. And the intent is to move our Security Operations Center up the maturity stack. So we partner with Department of Homeland Security and some others to help us move up in maturity. That has been a great experience. We do have some actionable steps we can take. And as a matter of fact, throughout this fiscal year, we've actually moved up incrementally in some of the maturity requirements. So I'm really happy about that. And one last thing, risk management. I know Mike mentioned it. That is key. One of our priorities for fiscal year 23 is to integrate risk management strategies into the enterprise risk management framework to help address the business needs and make sure that cybersecurity is integrated into that as well.
A good balanced risk posture, always really important. It sounds like a lot of moving parts going on over there at USDA. Jim, in order to roll out these different kind of capabilities, we have to have great technology. Certainly you all are right smack in the middle of that. Give us the state about what you're seeing from a Fortinet standpoint.
Well, thanks, Luke. As you noted, Fortinet is really at the center of the cybersecurity technology ecosystem. We've got an extremely broad portfolio. We deal with most of the federal agencies. Agencies have each got transformational plans. As Janelle said, a lot of them are focused on things mapping to the executive order. But if you want to know what people are doing, follow the money. So let me quickly thumbnail 3 areas where we're seeing across agency a lot of activity. One is continuing interest in zero trust, and that is manifesting in things like upgrading their on-premise firewalls, because next generation firewalls can serve as the policy enforcement points for zero trust. And to build on the comments that Shane and Mike said, they help in continuous monitoring and they help with the security automation. So there's a lot that's being done in the areas of on-premise security. Despite the transition to remote work and now hybrid, agencies are also continuing to update their on-premise trusted internet connections. We're seeing that cloud-based access to things like firewalls continues to be largely for those remote users. And the third area is that agencies are also buying a whole lot of non-wired, non-MPLS connections, like wireless and like satellite. And this means that they're able to facilitate implementing software-defined networking and the kind of connectivity communications resilience that would support connect from anywhere operating posture. So those are 3 of the big trends that we're seeing across the federal family.
A lot of moving parts going on there, and we're certainly thankful that you all are right in the middle of that, keeping that risk posture low. Zafar, tell us about over at Databricks, new on the show. Tell us, first of all, what is Databricks? So everyone has a good understanding of that. And then give us a state about what's happening across the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So Databricks, our company was founded in 2013. And we have over 7,000 customers, including many organizations in the public sector. And we've had, tremendous growth and huge number of customers using our platform for a large variety of data and AI use cases. And what we do is we provide a lakehouse platform, which is a best of breed between a traditional data warehouse and a data lake. So it combines the best capabilities of both of those tools, the BI and reporting capabilities of a data warehouse, and the AI and ML capabilities that you can use a data lake for. And this concept helps organizations simplify their data infrastructure, gives a single pane of glass to all of your data, and one platform that you can use for all of your use cases, whether it's AI, ML, or BI, or data warehousing, or even streaming and ETL. So now, while we have a general purpose data platform as our product, we're seeing a huge uptick in the number of cybersecurity use cases, particularly to augment existing SIEMs. And primarily because we can operate an order of magnitude cheaper than existing SIEMs for storing and analyzing large-scale data in the cloud. Most existing SIEMs, they have more of a legacy on-prem architecture for their software, which hurts their price performance operating in the cloud. And then on top of that, they typically have expensive licensing models that charge you based on the volume of data ingested. So what this lakehouse pattern is enabling in cybersecurity is greater visibility for a longer period of time into your cybersecurity log data. I had one customer recently tell me that prior to adopting the lakehouse, they had 90 days of historical data in their SIEM. And then for some of their high value but high volume log sources like CrowdStrike data, they only had 7 days worth of data that was searchable. So if they have an incident that goes past that 7-day time window, they're really out of luck with what they can discover through their data. And after building out their lakehouse, they were able to go to a full year's worth of history. And additionally, this organization had invested into a cyber ML organization. So data scientists attached their cybersecurity organization that wanted to create models within their company. And not just for threat hunting, but for creating these models. And they had struggled that with, again, on some of the legacy SIEMs. So they were able to accomplish some of that with our platform.
So important to be able to reach back, and the fact that you can do that, reach back a year and do that type of analysis is incredible. Well, let's talk about some specific programs. Mike, I'm going to go back to you at NASA and ask you to highlight a specific program that you'd like to inform our listening audience about.
I'll touch on 2 real quick ones, I guess. As I mentioned,
you're only going to Mars and the moon, right? I mean, come on. It's incredible what you all are doing, and we really do respect it.
No, I appreciate that. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been focused on zero trust for a number of years, and we began implementing software-defined network across all of our centers about 2+ years ago as we continue to set that foundation. And that's the critical foundation we need as part of that. And then we've also continued to move these efforts into our cloud-based applications as we work closer with Microsoft, in O365 Azure implementation, because it's how we provide access, alternative access, if you will, to a lot of our partners abroad. As you can imagine, we work with researchers around the globe. We've got partners that are helping us with, the Artemis program and stuff like that. So we've got to have those connections with them. The other one I'll touch on that I think, very proud of is I've been working with other federal CISOs, the CTO community, CISA, and Microsoft under the CIO Council to develop a soon released minimum O365 security baseline. And it's really great when we as a government come together to share and work, and we can accomplish so many things together on that one. So that one's right now it's in the arms of CISA. They're going to finalize that to get that rolled out and everything like that. But that's going to be coming out very shortly and stuff like that. We've been working on that the past year as a joint community across the federal government. And that's something I'm really proud of.
And that's fantastic. Now, what does that actually consist of? What's going to be sort of bundled into that?
It really gets into it, and it ties into zero trust because that's something that we really worked with OMB on around that. They want to make sure that we didn't leave out the zero trust importance around O365. But it really gets into making sure that as agencies onboard O365, because it's something we found very common, about 90+% of the federal agencies using O365. But what we found was we were all having to come in and figure out which settings we all needed individually for ourselves. And we needed what we wanted to do was have a minimum baseline. So they gave you a starting point, right? And so every agency, whether they're a large agency, a medium agency, or even a micro agency, right? We're all struggling, if you will, to figure out what do I need? What should my minimum baselines need or whatever like that. So we really wanted to have that common baseline of where to start from. It's not saying that you need to stick there, but it gives you that common baseline of where to start at, and then you can basically kind of tweak from there. But it put us all at the same starting. It'll put us all at the same starting point on. I'll call it day one, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, that's what a good architecture is all about. Fantastic. I'm really pleased to hear that. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We are talking all things cybersecurity. We are actually getting into specific examples. And Jim, I'm going to ask you, you have a sort of a catbird seat there, looking across various agencies and quite frankly, across the private sector as well. What are you seeing from Fortinet in regards to a specific program that you'd like to highlight?
So, Luke, we typically don't name specific agencies because of the NDA, because of the, but let me tell you what we've done for not one, but for several large agencies that have nationwide operating footprints. We've helped them implement programs that accelerated their migration to the cloud and the ability to let remote users use SaaS. The challenge was they had legacy wide area network architectures that required routing all the internet-bound traffic through a centralized location. So I'm a remote user in the field. I want to go to the internet, but my traffic has to be routed back either through headquarters or through a branch office out to the internet, and then in reverse, what we call the trombone effect, out and back. So we help them implement secure SD-WAN technology that let these remote users directly go to the internet for SaaS applications. And because branch offices still mattered, the agency was still able to centrally manage and configure this. So this is a win-win situation. They got improved security because these networking devices are also next generation firewalls. Users were happier because you could set the internal service level agreement to prioritize the kind of collaborative platform we're on. So the latency was fine for this, other things in the background slowed down instead. So, the users are happier, the agencies get increased visibility into what's going on, including encrypted traffic. These platforms had the capability to support zero trust. It was easier to certify compliance. I don't think there's a Ciso out there who doesn't say they spend a whole lot of time checking those boxes on compliance. And it also enabled automation and the ability to support incident response playbooks. So we thought that was a big win. It looked like something that was really about updating just networking technology and architectures, but it actually markedly increased their capabilities in cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, and that losing that trombone effect or hairpin or whatever you want to call that tightens up the performance as well. And I'm sure everyone is appreciative of that. Janelle, how about at USDA? You got a lot of moving parts going on over there. Give us a specific example of a program you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, so the program that comes to mind is our enterprise security logging and monitoring program. That's benefited greatly from our cybersecurity modernization efforts. And I say that because we have established a standardized maturity model for event log management, which is extremely valuable because now we're able to benchmark and measure against something. So that's invaluable. So our project is providing us near real-time analytics of our logging and how our enterprise is doing and functioning. And this is both for cybersecurity and IT operational needs. And also just going back to this overall risk management theme and strategy is helping us with that as well as we integrate and move forward with this overall department-wide risk approach. So that's one of the highlights. We have many more, but that's the main one I'd like to.
Of course, and a very important one, no question about that. So hats off to you for that implementation. Zafar, how about at Databricks? Again, you have a very unique position there, striped across several different agencies. Give us an example of a program that you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, sure. So in the public sector, we have a number of publicly referenceable customers, such as the DoD, which are rolling out lakehouses. More on the business side of things, so for business use cases. So in the DoD, the Office of the Chief Digital and AI Office, what they're doing is they're centralizing and acquiring data from hundreds of different enterprise data sources to decrease the time to insight for their data scientists and data analysts. On the cybersecurity side, we're more in the piloting of the cybersecurity lakehouse initiatives with a number of agencies in the public sector. Essentially, our existing customers using Databricks for business use cases are now looking into leveraging us for cybersecurity as well. And there's been interest in leveraging our platform to handle the logging side of the zero trust architecture. Particularly due to the beefed up logging requirements of last year's OMB M21-31. And because that mandate was unfunded, many organizations were left scrambling to figure out how to be able to store and analyze their larger data sets, given the high cost of these legacy SIMs. So our price performance makes us particularly appealing there for customers that are already using us for business data. We use low-cost cloud object storage to store all our data within our platform. So like Amazon S3 or Azure ADLS. And we don't license to store your data. You just pay the underlying cloud provider. We license just based on processing and compute. And so it's a very cost-effective model for cybersecurity logs. And our data format is also open source. So that's also very appealing to our customers. And then on the commercial side, we're seeing great adoption for cybersecurity lakehouses among enterprises. And one of our customers there is a cybersecurity or a large financial services company that talked about their cybersecurity use case last month at Data and AI Summit. And they're ingesting a tremendous amount of data, 100 to 200 petabytes of or terabytes of data per day. And they're storing that data for up to a year. So they can go back and look at, their logs up to a year. And they have, 40 to 50 terabytes searchable. So pretty impressive scale that only a few technology companies were operating at only a few years ago.
Very efficient capability, no question about that. So we really appreciate it. Shane, you all are doing multi-cloud. You've got all kinds of virtual interviews for benefit seekers, et cetera. A lot of different aggressive postures going on both the technology side and the business requirements side. No question you have a lot of different examples here. Give us one that you'd like to highlight that just sort of rings the bell that you all are super proud of.
Well, first off, I have to do this because this is a bucket list item for me. Mike, I really want to go to the moon. And if you can arrange for me to get a flight, man, hey. I will, you can have my firstborn. Well, you probably want the secondborn actually, but
but you're only going to be able to do it after me because I want to go too.
Luke, we'll do it together.
All right, I'm with you. I'm ready to go.
So, there's so much going on. It's hard to keep track of it all. And I think really, if one of the things I think we're most proud of, and one of the things we're really just driving forward, which has just become one of our saving graces, has been the security automation programs that we've been implementing. We fell into security automation, I say, primarily because of an incident that we had. Kind of dodged a bullet on one of our cloud systems, learned a lot of really valuable lessons, hard lessons, painful lessons, very sleepless night lessons, but lessons nonetheless. And we walked away from that realizing that, cloud is wonderful in all kinds of ways, but one of the things that enables is this whole concept of security automation. And not only can you automate the alert, but you can also automate your response. And this was sort of an eye-opening moment. Now, this occurred 5, 6, almost 7 years ago now. And we spent about 2 years failing at it, really. I mean, we really didn't have, we figured all the ways you're not supposed to do it.
Right, you fail, you learn, right?
It's the agile methodology that we employ here. And in doing so, we crafted and started building out a program. Now, one of the things that we found that was even more valuable is the ability to show a return on investment. In other words, we could demonstrate, hey, if we invest X number of dollars into this program, we can show you with real dollar values how much automation is saving us in labor hours and in costs. And I think in the first year, and we thought we were, by the way, rocking the world when we did this, well, it was actually the third year. In the third year, I think we managed to carve out about $600,000 in automation savings. Now, that's not really a savings, but it's an opportunity. It's things that we're no longer having to invest our time and energy into, and allows us to focus on other things. So it's sort of a different way to look at it. But we thought we were rocking the world. But, jump forward to today, and this year, I think we're going to probably push about 28 million in automation savings. That means that every time we generate an automation, we calculate how much labor hours that would have spent doing that, and then have an ongoing live dashboard of tracking. I actually have a way I can go in and look at it, tell you what it is exactly minute to minute. But then we realized, this was great for the SOC, but automation had to be bigger. It just had to. The program, the cybersecurity program was bigger than just the SOC. So we started looking at risk. We started looking at governance. And I'm also very lucky as a CISO to own identity security. I own the ICAM program for USCIS. And so we started looking across the board about how we tie automation into all those programs, doing the exact same thing we did with the SOC. Because, if you think about it, when you're like USCIS, as I mentioned before, is about 90, actually, I could probably make the argument for 95% cloud. If you're infrastructure is code. Well, your security is code too. So that means that we began investing heavily in development teams for the security. So if you walk into my SOC, you have your security analyst sitting on the floor, and you also have a development team sitting on the floor. They sit side by side because they are of equal value. My risk program has development teams associated with it. My governance program has a development teams associated with it. My ICAM program is all development. And so integrating that level of automation and bringing that together to break down the silos between even in security programs have a terrible habit of creating silos within themselves. Using those automated tools to break that down. We're actually in the process of automating all of our risk management. We're a heavy user of ongoing authorization. Every system we have is an ongoing authorization. And it's a very heavy lift, both in terms of manual processes. So we started automating that. We're actually in the process of automating governance so that I'm tired of PDF documents. There's no reason for us to be doing it that way. We want to be able to automate and generate a security plan. Why couldn't we do that? And so we're close to doing that. I think just the recent release of OSCAL, the Open Security Controls Assessment Language, protocols that have come out that are going to allow for machine learning for a lot of our security documentation is just a huge win. So we're in the process of implementing that as part of our automation program. So, and not only that, if you think about it going forward, especially if you want to do zero trust, zero trust is all about going to the transaction level. The only way you're going to do that is with automation. And getting your feet wet and doing it, in small bits and bites as you go along and kind of eating at that elephant with one small bite at a time is really the most successful way. Now, I wish we could say we were so smart and so forward thinking that we planned it this way. We didn't. We fell into it. But the reality is now as I kind of reflect back over the last 6 years and the value that that's adding to my overall security program and allowing me to do things that other security programs are struggling with because of that, I recognize the value that security automation has played in my overall program. It's really allowed us to push the envelope in a number of different areas.
Yeah, no doubt. And I noticed that the other agencies also talked about automation. It's like automate or die, right? It's kind of
very true.
We're going to roll over to priorities here, and we're going to talk about top 2 or 3 priorities. We always like to touch on those. Janelle, I'm going to start with you. You have a lot of different things going on over there. Give us your top 2 or 3 priorities that you've got cooking for this year.
So, well, the number one priority, I think over this year and next year is to move up the maturity stack for all of our cybersecurity requirements. Of course, we're working on zero trust and architecture, and I think beat that to death, But one of the key things that's going to be really important for us is expanding our cybersecurity service offerings across the department. This year, we established cybersecurity service line items that cover network security, enterprise security monitoring, logging, vulnerability and compliance management, system security, phishing and pen testing, and security enterprise incident response and threat intelligence. So we have very discrete line items. We offer them as a service to our missions. And we also have a blanket purchase agreement in place that's going to help us with that as well. So, if people need a cybersecurity service and they need contractor support to do that, they should be able to go to the BPA and issue a task order and go on their merry way. So, so really just making life easier from a cybersecurity perspective for folks to get their services that they need. And then also continue our collaboration with our federal executive branch partners. We work a lot with DHS Ciso on a lot of things and collaborate with some of the CISOs on a regular basis. I see I need to hook up with Shane to get some more information on his automation. But those are our priorities over the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, and I love the collaboration that's going on that Mike pointed out there. I think that's really important. When you band together, you're able to fight the good fight, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Zafar, we're going to talk about priorities there. What are the priorities from where you sit? What's the demand signal that you're seeing there that you're addressing over the course of this year?
Yeah, sure. So one of our biggest investments and priorities is we're investing into delivering a FedRAMP High and IL4 and IL5 accredited SaaS platform. So a lot of our our existing customers there, they use a heavier deployment model where they essentially take our SaaS platform and deploy it into their cloud account and manage that themselves to make things easier and to deliver more value quickly to those customers. We're looking to get them migrated over to our full SaaS platform offering. So we're making a big investment there. We have over 800 engineers in the company, and this migration is going to impact all those various different teams that they work on. And then we're also looking to open source some of our internal cybersecurity tooling that we use for our own cybersecurity lakehouse to help our customers adopt lakehouses much faster for cybersecurity use cases. So things like parsers and machine learning models that we've trained on our data internally help our customers adopt some of those.
I really do appreciate that, FedRAMP High, so important. Jim, we're going to go to Mike, and we're going to ask you about top priorities for NASA for you this year. You've got a lot of different moving parts going on there, major activity at NASA, as with all the agencies. Top priority for you, Mike.
Yeah, so actually, we just did a major reorg on our cybersecurity at NASA, and that went into effect actually on April the 24th of this year. So we're about 90 plus days into our massive reorg. We're really taking it from the standpoint of moving away from I'll call a federated approach to an enterprise approach as far as implementing cybersecurity across our enterprise from that standpoint. And so we're really kind of focusing in on pushing that in over the next, I'll call it several years, but really the next 1 to 2 is key as we roll out, new teams, new roles and responsibilities in the way that we're delivering, I'll call it services. Janelle kind of touched on that. We have a cyber security service line that we put into effect about 3 years ago. But underneath this realignment, we're really pushing to add more service delivery capabilities into that we offer out as the entire enterprise can take advantage of, including on our mission side, such as ISO as a service, our pen testing, phishing, all of this other stuff around it, and as well as for A&A to make sure that we help them when they set up their system security plans, as they manage POAMs and risk-based decisions on their end around that. Is really helping to provide that level of service. One of the other things that we've kind of stood up as part of my team in this reorg was we stood up a mission integration team. And what we're doing with it is as many times the fun job of the Ciso is the oversight to make sure compliance is being done around that, right? And unfortunately, our customers don't really like the word compliance, right? So we've really set up this one team here is they're partners. They're not there to do compliance on there. They're not there to do the oversight on them in any way, shape, or form. We're embedding cybersecurity engineering expertise into our mission, parts of our missions to basically help and guide them, advise them, be almost that partner consultant to them to help them make wise decisions going forward. And as they see gaps or whatever, to help basically talk them through that, guide them through that. Again, they're not there to do compliance on that staff. They're really to be at the table with them to help guide them and be a partner in them. That's something new that we stood up. We did a pilot on that over the past year with the Artemis program, and it turned out tremendous. So now we're basically pushing it enterprise-wide so that we take advantage of across it with all of our missions and researchers around that. So that's really one of the big things that we're really doing over the next 2 years.
Sounds like some very key partnership going on there, which is great. I always say, put the clipboard down. Let's start partnering with the operators. All right, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about all things cyber. We're talking specifically about priorities. And Jim, I wanted to give you an opportunity to highlight a couple of priorities that are happening over at Fortinet.
So, Luke, let me lay out what I see as the public sector guy, three big priorities and what we've got to do for the public sector. They're what I call my three S's: supply chain, simplification, and security, or SOC automation and integration. Let me start with supply chain. Fortinet's actually the world's biggest producer of security devices, especially firewalls and UTM. So we recognize that, especially in the wake of the executive order, we've got to demonstrate supply chain security to the federal government. Customized handling, giving them visibility into it. So yes, we are focused on increasing the ability to both provide that and to demonstrate that to the federal government. Simplification. We've talked a lot on this panel about zero trust, but if you look at the zero trust architecture and the schema for implementing it, you have to do a half a dozen or more functions. If each of those has to be done by a separate product, especially in this age of supply chain shortage, that's going to hold agencies back. So zero trust is at its minimum about connecting a user to something at a core. So can you get it down to two things? And the answer is yes, we've been able to do that. So you've got one device that can be at the core and something that can be done at the endpoint. And ideally, it can be a software agent so that you can provision people on the fly. So yes, we're able to say you can do the core elements of zero trust with only two components. And then security or SOC automation. I mean, I envy Shane for saying he only tried and failed for 2 years at this. When I was in federal government trying to integrate all the centers, we spent a whole lot more time trying and failing than that. And the reality is, in any SOC I've ever seen, the SOC analyst is going to spend 55 or more minutes out of every hour making sense of the data. So the remaining minutes that they spend on doing something about it, driving action, that security automation have got to be really efficient. And fortunately, Fortinet's in a good place to help agencies actually make progress on making that activity both powerful, but also integrated across the enterprise that they're trying to defend.
Yeah, automation's so key. You're burning a lot of calories with some very sophisticated individuals when you're not automated. So there's no question about that. Shane, we're going to roll it up to you. Top priorities for you as you focus on this year.
Wow, just a few, huh? I do have a couple that are a few that I'm really actually very interested in following.
Right, there's always a 1, 2, and 3, right?
Well, I have about 20 actually, but yeah, I'll stick with 3. Now, I think my top 3 though, right now I'm really keyed in on redoing our vulnerability management program all the way around. I feel like the way that we do it today is just holistically wrong. It's not a sustainable program. It's not something that makes a whole lot of sense. And it's kind of an old school approach to it. And so what we're in the process of doing right now, and hopefully we'll complete before the first of the new year, is driving more of a risk-based approach to vulnerability management and how we do it. Not all vulnerabilities are created equal. And even if US CERT says, oh no, this is a 10 versus a 5 or a 6, or it's a high or it's a medium or it's a critical, it may not be for me. And so really start looking at the vulnerabilities that are coming across the board and how they apply to my organization, and then making sure that we prioritize the ones that are actually true threats. And by a true threat, that means it's actually being exploited in the real world. And this is where I think CISA has done us all a favor. Creating their known exploit list is really key, because that would have been something I would have had to recreate. So we're going to begin leveraging that. And if it applies to me, if it's part of my public facing systems, you can easily start creating this sort of like a very risk-based decision-making process that we can automate, and then focus it on that. And then anything that's not in that list, push it off to the side and have some more standardized process that happens once a month or twice a month or whatever you do, but not worrying about the things that I don't have to worry about. And it's going to have impacts on my physical scorecards and some of the other things, but the reality is my job is to secure the enterprise, and this is going to help me do that. The next thing is supporting my agency's move into the serverless and microservices environments. We are in the process of doing that. We've done it, actually, I should say, for some of our systems. And then now we're also starting to really toy around with the serverless side of it. That's a whole new world for security. Serverless especially defies all kinds of FISMA boundaries. It's exceptionally difficult to classify and to understand according to traditional FISMA boundaries. So redefining how we look at systems and what a system really truly is under that guidance is going to be a challenge for us. It's going to be a focus item for us because it's the only way we have to figure out a way to deal with it. Because we're going that direction whether I like it or not. It makes good sense. There's a lot of reasons why serverless is such a great thing from a security perspective. But at the same time, we are a federal agency. We need to comply with the laws and policies of the federal government. And we need to figure out how to make that balance. And so that's going to be a big initiative for us. And I think the last thing, and I've talked so much about it, so I don't want to spend too much time, is really driving further into the automated world. One of my big pushes this next year is going to be the integration of cyber intelligence. We are a huge, I started building my cyber intelligence program about 2 years ago, right before SolarWinds hit. And it paid such dividends during the SolarWinds incident response, and has continued to do so. So we've been expanding that on a continual basis. We started out with a single analyst on that. I'm now up to 6 analysts and a federal lead, and really building that program and then automating it into all levels, ensuring that because for me, intelligence is only valuable if it's applicable to the environment, it's actionable, meaning I can actually do something about it, and it's timely. And so making sure that I can apply that intelligence in the right way, in the right time, is really critical for me over this next year. So those are kind of my big 3 I think we're pushing towards.
Top 3 items, very laser focused, super important. We really do appreciate it. Hey, we only have a few more minutes, so we're going to have to wrap it up here. We always like to end with this one. And I'm going to ask both Zafar and Jim, you can sort of weave in your top priorities and sort of that longer term into your answers here. Zafar, I'm going to start with you. Tell us, fast forward 3 years, what's it going to look like at that point? What's the demand signal that you all are getting? Maybe stuff that's coming out of the Petri dish. What's that operating environment look like from where you all sit?
Yeah, sure. So for us, one of our biggest areas of investment is we're not a cybersecurity company, so we're heavily looking into partnering with commercial software companies and system integrators to build tooling on top of our Lakehouse platform to produce more cybersecurity products that run on the Lakehouse to deliver additional capability to our customers. And an example of that today is a company like Abnormal Security. They have an AI product that analyzes over 50,000 signals to detect and remediate email attacks that runs on Databricks. So we're always looking to expand and add such partners so that we have additional capability to around cybersecurity. And we want more partners similar to cybersecurity. So we've even started making investments into cybersecurity companies from our venture arm to help fund startups building products on top of the Lakehouse. And I think in the next few years, you'll see fully fledged SIMs that run on the Lakehouse as well. So that will be some of the interesting development there.
Wow, sounds super exciting. Jim, how about at Fortinet? Same question. What's it going to look like from where you all sit 3 years from now?
So, Luke, I think I've already talked about this trend, convergence of networking and security. I think the paradigm is starting to shift where we're going to move towards a state where it doesn't matter where the user, the device, the data, and the computing resource are. You're going to have to be able to connect those 4 elements, and you're going to have to be able to do those securely. So it doesn't matter whether we're talking about edge computing, cloud computing, that is going to become the normal operating posture. The second element is AI, and I'm surprised we've made it through this whole panel without anybody mentioning the word AI. We've got a lot of experience collectively at doing this. So, and as AI becomes more powerful, it's becoming more portable. So it's also becoming something that you can deploy across that ecosystem. It's a simpler problem in my experience to do this in edge computing. It's not the same degree of complexity. And then to build on what Zafir said, the third thing is partnership. In my federal career, I saw that no agency could do this alone. Now that I'm in the private sector, I see that no company can do this fully on its own. We're stronger and more effective together. The paradigm has really got to shift to saying cybersecurity is a team sport.
Yeah, and I really do love the partnership and the fact that Ciso community is really coming together to solve these things holistically. Janelle, paint a picture of the future. What's it going to look like in 3 years now? You've got a lot of different activities underway. Where do you want to be in 3 years when you sort of look around USDA?
So two things I'd like to highlight. First, people.
Right.
Really want to work towards closing the cybersecurity skills gap in USDA, and then across the federal space, working with other federal agencies. And through training, that's going to allow our cybersecurity warriors to hit the ground running. And so we're really focused on doing that. Providing training, making sure role-based training is in place, and in an effort to transition folks from a more compliance-based skill set to looking more at things through the technical lens, because that's where we're going. No more check the box, even if it's using one of our specialized tools to check the box. We really need to look at things from a technical aspect. The other thing is to retain those workers through tangible incentives like CyberPay. We're in constant competition with our private sector partners. There's a high demand for cybersecurity. Just trying to figure out how we get those folks and how we keep them. And the last thing I'll say is recognizing, and I think we've been talking throughout this time about it takes a village, to be cliche. In order for us to be successful, we can't do it on our own. I recognize that for USDA, which is why it's so important to me that we leverage available service from our support vendors, partnering with other organizations and our oversight bodies to help us move forward with all of our initiatives going forward over the next 5 years and beyond.
A lot of moving parts there, a lot of activity, and I love that picture you've painted there, and I love that harmony that's going on. Shane pointed out with Ciso, for example. I think that's really important. That's why they're there, right? So good to hear this. All right. So what about at NASA? If I fast forward 3 years from now, I can't remember if we're at the moon or not, but you certainly have reorged at that point, right, Mike? And
Absolutely.
There's a lot of pieces and parts in place. What do you want to see? Where do you want to sort of land, as I'll call it? Let's say 3 years from now, what's NASA going to look like from where you sit as a CISO?
Honestly, as corny as this going to sound, I want to be the silent partner around that. And where I'm getting at with that is I want the missions to be partnering with us so that cybersecurity is built in on day zero, right? I mean, it's not day one, it's day zero. So as they start basically moving forward with their programs and stuff like that, it's just part of that culture. It's part of the foundation that we put into our programs going up there. It's not a second thought or something that we have to catch up on around it from that standpoint or whatever. And so that when we do great things out there, like, going to Mars and beyond with Gateway going up, and we're working with our partners, the European Space Agency and stuff like that, right? You don't really hear about cybersecurity, right? You want to hear about the great things that NASA's doing on the space side, on the research side around it from that standpoint or whatever. And so again, I'll say in 3 years, I really want to make sure that when I say silent partner, that means we've got things working in the background and I'm not on the front news for any reason whatsoever, right? Because that means usually bad things have happened, and I don't want bad things to happen, right? So it's really trying to work with our partners to make sure that we basically, get our culture into place for cybersecurity. And by the way, it really has changed since I've been there for now 6 years at NASA, and from the day I started to where we are now, the culture has definitely shifted, and I want to continue to push that shift.
When you say culture has shifted, in what respect? I'm just curious about that.
So if you think about it, right, at NASA, just the amount of research that we've done, right? So it was typically kind of the I'll call it college environment, right? All the amount of research, right? And access to everything, and a lot of times security impeded that access and stuff like that. So security was, I'll say, traditionally thought of as an impediment and not a partner, right? And so that's something that we've really been pushing over the last 6 years that I've been here, is pushing that in to make sure they understand things like Shane brought up earlier, the SolarWinds incident, right? NASA was actually a victim of that incident. One of the things I did here that we just done a little bit differently. Usually, when the big incidents happen, right, the leadership gets briefed up what's happened. We say everything's like all classified, and then we never share it out with anybody else. I actually took advantage of that incident and went the other direction with it. I held numerous open forums within NASA with all of our users, our contractors, our employees, and everyone. And we had multiple segments of this is exactly what happened during that incident. We gave the full kimono. Here's what happened. And what the adversary did while they were on a network, what the adversary didn't do, what they could have done, what they didn't do, and stuff like that. So we really shared that internally to help the education piece of that. So again, from my perspective, never waste a good crisis.
Sure. Really went from a posture of blocking to a posture of enabling and embracing. Shane, take us home. If I'm a freshly minted adjudicator at CIS, what does that look like in regards to 2 to 3 years from now? What kind of capabilities do you expect to have? What do you want to see from where you stand over the course of the next 3 years?
So, yeah, if I were to say, if I were to put it in terms of what I aspire my organization to be, I want an organization that can detect a 0-day in flight, but I also want an organization that maintains the cyber hygiene to require it. And what I mean by that is that, it's a balancing act. 0 days are the big press makers, are the ones they're the good crises. They're the SolarWinds and the Microsoft servers and all those stuff that make the news and everybody's aware of. But really, it's the day-to-day cyber hygiene operations, what we're really starting to call zero trust more so than anything, that really drives that and ensures that if you do have a 0-day attack, that you can detect it and that you can end, reduce the overall dwell time. I'm not, we're going to get attacked. We are going to get breached. That's a foregone conclusion. I don't think anyone's ever going to make a promise that you won't. So really driving towards, all of our access decisions being based on a very transactional level. This is not micro scale or macro scale version of access control. This is micro access control. This is applying trust and our understanding of trust at a very, very finite level in the organization. But at the same time, and I really like what Mike had to say about this, is driving a security culture within the organization that makes people understand that when we apply smart friction, meaning at times we're going to question who you are, what your device is, and what it's doing and why it's doing it, that we're doing it in a way that's beneficial to the overall organization. We're not just adding in friction to add friction because it's fun. We're doing it based on sound data and good decision making. So really driving a security program based on the data. I'm a huge proponent of data-driven security, and we've been made some great inroads already, but we have a long ways yet to go, and that's really our big focus for going forward.
Sounds like an aspiring, laser-focused area. We're really looking forward to seeing that. Hey, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule here to join us on this program. I'd also like to thank the sponsors here for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make this program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.